Good morning, everyone. And my name is Dhaval. I'm the product manager with UGREEN. And thank you for joining our webinar. Today, we're going to be learning about how to set up a new NAS. We have a lot of MSPs that actually purchase our devices for their customers. And so I want to make sure that I go through just the initial setup and then few applications that we can discuss about to best set up your NAS and make sure that everything's working smoothly as well. So with some quick presentation, I'll start. The main point will be our live demo. So let's make sure we go through the webinar or the setup the PowerPoint really quickly as well. So again, today's session is UGREEN NAS Masterclass, from unboxing to fully running in minutes. If you bought our first NAS, or if you're buying NAS for your customers, and this session will walk through step by step from opening the box all the way to setting up your NAS fully and ready to use. All right, so here's what we'll cover today, right? Starting with installing your drives, connecting your NAS to power as well as network, setting up for the first time, and then understanding storage pools, rate, and volumes. We'll touch on data protections like snapshot and finish with a quick demo and a Q&A session as well. Right, so let's start with installing the hard drive. So this is very straightforward. With UGREEN, actually, it's very a toolless design. You just need to press the button on the back right here. You can see the button right here. You press it, the tray expands a little bit. You put your drives in there, and then close the tray again, and then it will lock the drive in place. Once the drive is locked in place, plug the drive into the NAS. You can lock it if you like to. We provide a key on most of our NAS models, so you can lock it in. So nobody can steal it, or nobody can unplug the drive while it's running. So once you have locked it in, that's all you have to do to install the hard drive. Now, if you do plan to install M.2, not M.2, I mean SSD drives or 2.5-inch HDD drives, then you have these screws right here that you have in place. So you can screw them in, and then you just plug it in. So you don't need to, it's not a toolless design at that point. You just need to, we provided with the screws, as well as, I think there's a screwdriver as well inside the NAS. So you can screw them in, and then you plug it into your NAS. That's for 2.5-inch drive. All right, now, in case if you want better performance, you may also want to install an M.2 drive, or you can also upgrade the RAM as well. So on most of our NAS, from 4-bay models all the way to 8, 6, 8 bays, you have an access point below the NAS. You just flip it over and unscrew the 2 screws right here, and then you will have access to the M.2 slots, as well as you have the access to the RAM slot. Most of the NAS comes with 2 RAM slots and 2 M.2 slots. We provide you with the thermal pad as well for the M.2, so you can unscrew them, plug the M.2, install the thermal pads, and that's it. And then for RAM, now, only on the 2-bay model, there's 2 different installation methods. So first of all, the RAM is actually below the NAS. It only comes with 1 single slot RAM, so you have to upgrade the RAM. So you just plug it in, and then that's it. Now, for M.2s, it's actually, unfortunately, there's no picture for that, but you just unplug the 2 drive trays, and it's on the left side of the NAS. You install the M.2. So only on the 2-bay model, the DXP 2800, you have 2 different options to install the RAM and the M.2, but rest of them, it's fairly simple. Remove the panel from the bottom, upgrade the RAM if needed, or install the M.2 drives. Now, once the drives are installed, you want to set up for the first time, right? So you just plug in the power cable, and then you plug in the network cable on the back. Now, it doesn't matter network if you have. Most of the NAS has 2 network ports, so you can plug in either one of them. It doesn't matter which one of them. Just plug it in, and then you can power the NAS using the front power button. Now, the networking setup is simple. Power plugs into the power wall, and then the network comes in from the LAN port of the router to one of the network ports. Now, if you want to plug it into your computer directly, you can also do that as well. But having it connected to your router can also make these NAS a network attached storage, basically having it online. Now, initializing a NAS on the PC. Now, there's two ways of initializing a NAS on the PC. First of all, you can visit this website called find.ugnas.com, and it will search your NAS or search your devices on the network and then be able to find that NAS. Or you have the ability to install a UGREEN NAS application for Windows and Mac and be able to set up your NAS using the application. And I'll show you all of this through the online setup. Now, when going through the setup, you always want to make sure that you have a strong and unique and complex password using a mix of uppercase, lowercase letters, and numbers and symbols. So ensure that you have a strong password because that's your main access to your data. You want to make sure everything is secure. Now, we also can set up on using a phone as well. Now, to set up on a phone, you just have to download the application. You can go through your iOS App Store or Android Play Store and download the UGREEN NAS app. Once you have that, you just click on the Add Device, and then you can just click on and just follow the instructions. You'll ask to be initialize the device. You just click on Start and just start initializing the device. Now, let's talk about how to set up your storage or how storage actually works. This is the most important concept, right? Think of it as three layers. RAID is where your drives are combined and protected. So RAID would be combining the 2, 4, 6, or 8 drives into one single large drive, which is protected. What I mean by protected is in case if you lose a drive, your data is still safe. So that's the RAID concept. Now, storage pool is the total usable space created from that RAID. So when you create the RAID, let's say, for example, you have a 2-bay NAS. I'm going to keep it simple. You have a 2-bay NAS, you go with RAID 1. Now, 2 10-terabyte drives. So that will give you usable capacity of 10 terabyte because the other 10 terabyte is for backup because of RAID 1. So storage pool will combine the 2 10-terabyte drives into RAID 1, and they'll give you a usable capacity of 10 terabyte. Volumes is actually where your actual files live. So RAID, then storage pool, and then volume. Once you understand this, managing your NAS becomes very easy. Now, volume, I also think of it as partition. You can partition multiple volumes on the NAS, or you can partition that storage pool into one single big volume as well. All right. So which RAID should you choose? So if you want a simple protection, go with RAID 1, right? So if it's a 2-bay system, then it's a simple protection RAID 1, which minimum of 2 drives. One drive is the main drive. Second drive is a backup drive, right? So even if you lose any of that 2 drives, your data is still safe. Now, if it's a 4-bay system, which RAID would you choose? If you want balance of storage and safety, RAID 5 is the most popular one because it gives you capacity as well as it gives you redundancy. So with RAID 5, you have minimum of 3 drives, and then you can lose on 1 drive at any given time. So if you lose 1 drive out of that, any of the 4 bays, your data is still safe. Now, unfortunately, if you lose another drive at the same time, before you replace that failed drive in RAID 5, you lose all the data. And that's really critical as well. So, but if you lose a drive on RAID 5, you replace that drive quickly and the RAID 5 goes back to normal. If you lose a second drive later, after a few months or few weeks, then it's fine because you replace that original drive. But if you did not replace that original drive and another drive fails at the same exact time, then you lose that data as well. Now, what is RAID 6? RAID 6 is for higher protection. Now, people who have data really critical and they really need that data point that you cannot lose any data, right? So RAID 6 is minimum, again, of 4 drives. So you can set up actually on a 4-bay system as well, and then you can scale up. Now, I mean, my recommendation always stays with 4 or 6-bay. You can actually go away with RAID 5 because having multiple drive redundancy, having multiple drive failing on a RAID 5 on a 4 or 6-bay NAS can be really it's not that common to hear, because remember, these drives, we recommend them RAID drives, right? So these drives are meant to run multiple years, are meant for protection as well. So having two drives fail at the same time is really rare on a 4 or 6 bay system. But anything above 6 bay, we always recommend RAID 6, because then you're having multiple drive failure, because more drives you add, more failure points you add as well, right? So RAID 6 is, again, minimum of 4 drives. You can lose up to 2 drives at any given time. Your data is still safe. So that's for higher protection. Now, people, even a 4-bit system who wants the data to be like, the data is really critical, and they really want to make sure that they don't leave anything to chance, right? So they can go with RAID 6, so that gives them a better protection, having 2 drives fail even on the RAID on a 4-bit system. Now, RAID 10 is for performance and heavy workload. So RAID 10 again mirrors and strapping for speed and redundancy. So it pairs 2 drives at a time. So if you have a 4-bit system, disk 1 and 2 is a pair, disk 3 and 4 is another pair, and it stripes between both pairs. Now, technically, you can lose 2 drives, but it has to be on a single pair. So if you're talking about, now that gives you redundancy for sure, but also gives you performance. Now, RAID 10 can scale up because the minimum is 4 drives and has to be even number of drives. So on a 6 bay, 8 bay, you can always scale up, and then it will gives you higher performance the more pairs you add, because more striping is added into that RAID, right? So you add, the more drives you add, and again, this rule again is for every RAID. The more drives you have in a RAID, the more performance you get. But RAID 10 can scale up to higher performance because it also does striping as well between the pairs. So now, for example, if it's an 8-bit system and you have RAID 5, so RAID 10, you have 4 pairs of drive. Now you can lose on multiple drives. You can actually lose up to 4 drives on that pairs, but it only has to be 1 from each pair. So let's keep this simple. Let's talk about this example right here, which is a 4-bit system, pair 1 and pair 2. Now in this example, you can lose up to 2 drives, but it can only be from 1 pair. So if you lose drive 2 and drive 1 from, or disk 2 or disk 3, that's 1 from each pair, your data is still safe. Now, worst case scenario, if you lose disk 1 and 2 at the same time, your data is still lost because it's from that single pair. So you have to remember, so it's not like RAID 6. So if you're looking for protection, then RAID 6 is recommended even on a 4-bit system, because RAID 6 does not have that limitation of pairing, right? You can lose 2 drives on any drive, then it's fine. But RAID 10 has that one caveat that only 2 drives from that single pair cannot be lost at the same time. It's a rare case scenario, but that does happen. We have seen that happen before. So that's just one thing to remember. All right, so hopefully that answers all the questions on RAID. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to just keep asking on that question on Q&A tab, and then we can cover that for you as well. Now, last thing I want to talk about before we transition to the live demo is protecting your data. Now, RAID is for hardware protection. What about software protection? Snapshot lets you go back in time, like a restore point for your files. If you accidentally delete something or overwrite a file, you can easily recover that file, and we can recover your data. You can also have a recycle bin and backup option, so your data is always safe. Now, NAS does have recycle bin, so if you delete something, you can recover that from recycle bin. Now, what is snapshot? Snapshot is point-in-time copies of your files and folder. They allow you to revert to a previous version of your file, of your data. Now, but remember, in UGREEN NAS, you have 2 file systems that you choose when you set up the NAS. I'm going to go through that as well. You have ext4, and then you have BTRFS. Now, if you want to use snapshot, you can only use that on BTRFS. You cannot do that on ext4. So you have to remember, you choose BTRFS when you set up the system. Remember, you cannot switch back and forth between file system unless you delete all the data. Remember that deleting all the data is critical. Only then you can recover back in time. So only then you can change the file system. Restoring the file, you can navigate on Snapshot Manager in your UGREEN NAS, and I'll show you all of this later on when we go through that process. Now, Frank has a question with regards to restore. Can the main name change prior to the restore of the file? I may need more information on that. I'm not sure if I understand the scenario. Can you elaborate on that, Frank, please? Yeah, I'll continue in the meantime while we have the more clarification on that question. So that's snapshot. And then let's talk about the live demo. All right. Now I have a 4-bay NAS that I have set up here. Okay, Frank has confirmed the question. In the other words, file name XYZ prior to restore, change to XYZ2. Now it depends upon if the snapshot, because remember you have to schedule the snapshot, right? Now if the schedule happens, then the file name changes on the restore as well. Now if the schedule did not happen, because we can set up to take a snapshot every week, every month, every day as well. Now if you do that every day, and then the next scheduled snapshot happens, the file name changes in that as well. Now, if the next schedule did not happen, the snapshot would not know that you changed the name. So it will still show you the old file name and the old data inside that file. Hopefully that answers that question. But if you do change it, now if the schedule does happen, now remember, the snapshot is just not one single snapshot. You can actually ask the system to take multiple snapshots. Now, if you change the file name, and the snapshot schedule does run, you have the new snapshot that will show you the new file name. But when you go back to an older version of the snapshot, it will still show you the older version of the file, because remember, it takes the snapshot of that data in that period of time. So if the schedule happens, then the XYZ2 will be showing up on the new snapshots. But if you go back to the one previously named snapshots, then the XYZ comes back again. Hopefully that answers that question. All right, so let's talk about the two ways to set up your NAS, right? The first of all, as I mentioned, you can go to this website, find UGNAS.com, and then this will search for all the NASs in your network. Since I have multiple NASs on my network, it will find all of that and will show you that. Now, this is the non-initialized one. So this is the new NAS that I've set up. The ones that I've set up already will show you normal status, but the ones that I'm not initialized will show as not initialized. Click on connect, and it will start the initialization process, right? This is how you can set up the NAS. Let me also show you how it looks up in the UGREEN interface as well. Now you can download this, as I mentioned. Just say UGREEN NAS app. You can Google that. Click on app download, and then you can find the operating system that you have, as well as the App Store version that you have as well. Just click on the appropriate version, and you can download the application. Let's go back. Now, I'm going to go to more connection, because the first time you set up, it'll look different. But I'm going to go to more connection. This is going to show you something similar to this one. I have other NASs. That's what I'm going to show you here as well. But here you can see the new NAS will be popped up right here. It'll say new, and then you will say register. Click on register, and it will show you now the process of the website here and here. It's going to be very similar. So now we're going to start with naming your NAS. So you can say whatever name you want to set up, and this does not have to be unique, because this is your internal naming scheme. So once you have done that, you can click on read receipt, and you can click on the user agreement to go through the user agreement. If you want to participate in device improvement program, and that's completely optional, it will get information about just how to, like, basic information about device analysis, your usage, as all of that. Nothing Nothing in terms of your private data, only the NAS's information about the hardware that will be able to collect, but not about anything on your file. But if you don't want to do that, you just uncheck this, hit next. Now this is the administrator username and password. So just make sure you enter the admin username and then make sure you have a really strong password. And it will show you the strength as well. So just you can make sure it's always stays strong. If you say it's weak or a different thing, you just want to make sure you keep changing like the numbers, the symbols. Just having a strong password is highly recommended. Click next. Now this is if you want to set this up to remote access. Now and then you can skip this, right? If you don't want this NAS to be remotely accessible, you can skip this. But let's say, for example, and this is our UG link, which is a UGREEN link. This is a free option that we provide for customers who want to have remotely accessible NASs, but without having to open any ports in your router. Just enter your email address and then click on Get Verification Code. Now, if you don't have an account setup, it'll go through the process of setting up account setup, and you can do that as well. Now, once I receive that email, I'm going to receive a code. Just going to enter that code right here. Again, I read and agree. If you want to receive email notifications in terms of product services, events, and some promotional emails, you can check this box. If not, just completely fine. Just click next. And then it will tell you about the system update method. Now, you want to make sure that you always have the important updates to UGOS and apps automatically updated instead of manually updating it, because in case if there's any critical errors or critical issues that we find and we want to release a new update as soon as possible, the NAS can always update that as well once it receives that information. But you can always select notify me. So when you have a new firmware, it will update, it will notify you, and then you can choose to update that or not. Or you can select all the updates. It doesn't matter if it's small feature request updates or critical updates, it will update everything automatically. Initialize this. Now this will start in the initialization process. This should not take more than a few minutes. Okay, so it will does ask you to search for devices on the network. This should have been the first thing it'll ask you, but not sure why Mac is asking later on. Just click on allow so you can find the devices on the network. Now the best part about the UGREEN NAS is it does give you instructions of what you need to do next. Because remember, initializing the NAS is just one part of the setup. Because the storage pool, remember, we never went through the storage pool setup. This is where it's going to ask you to set that up, right? So just going to click on start. And it's going to give you a few information about what the interface looks like and how to browse the interface. Just click next, next. You can learn all of that. Very simple setup. And next. Now, thing is, first you need to do is start volume creation so you can start storing new data. Just click on go, and it's going to go to the storage app on your NAS. It's going to give you some introduction information about the storage setup on the device. Hit next. We're going to start the storage pool creation wizard. So hit create, select the drives. And the more drives you select, the more options you get on the rate. So it's really, like as I mentioned, the whole OS for the UGREEN is very simple. We want to make sure people understand what they're doing. So we want to make sure it's interactive. So you select multiple drives. The more drives you add, the more rate options you get. And it also shows you which is recommended. So the more drives, so we have 4-bay NAS right here. So it says RAID 5 is recommended. And just as I mentioned before, for 4-bay systems, RAID 5 is recommended, but you can always go with RAID 6. Now I'm going to select 2 drives because I'm also want to show you the SSD caching method. So we're just going to keep it simple. Just select 2 drives. Think of it as a 2-bay system rather than a 4-bay system. So you select the both drives, hit RAID 1, hit next. Now, this is the volume 1, right? So you can assign. So first of all, you can assign, let's say you don't want to, this is almost a 1 terabyte SSD, right? So because it's a 1 terabyte SSD, But since you have 2 terabytes in there, because of RAID 1, it's going to cut in half. So it's going to show you half the capacity, but that's fine because it's RAID 1, right? So now you can select allocated. So if you want a multiple pools, like multiple volumes on your NAS for different purposes, because remember, you can always have different folders on that single volume. You can actually have different folder for different purposes, but some customers want to have more control. Like one volume is for my backups, one volume is for my media, one volume is for my customers, stuff like that. You can actually do that here as well. So you can allocate less capacity. So I'm just going to say 500 gigabytes. Now, this is the file system. This is really important, right? So you can select ext4, which is for high stability, high performance, supports larger capacity pool. But if you want more features like snapshot, quotas, shared folders, advanced data integrity protection, you want to select BTRFS. My recommendation is always go with BTRFS because that gives you additional features that you may want to use down the line. Again, in terms of performance, that's not much of a difference. So I will always go with BTRFS, hit next. Once you select that, hit create. And remember, it's going to format your hard drives. So remember, if you have existing data on your hard drives, M.2s or anywhere, make sure you do not go through the format process because it's going to delete everything. It has to be fresh drives. So click on format. It's going to confirm the password again for your admin username. Hit continue, and it's going to start the process. No, now you can see the storage pool and the volume that you have created right here. Since remember, I only added half the capacity of my volume. If you want to add more capacity or you want to create a new volume, just click on create new volume and you can add the additional capacity that's left from the storage pool. You can actually select another file system as well. With UGREEN NAS, you can actually have multiple volumes with different file systems on your NAS. So you can actually have a different file system on that second volume, or you can select that additional capacity and you click on OK. And you can actually lower the capacity if you want to create a third volume. Or let's say you don't want to deal with multiple volumes, you can just click on expand and you can actually add that additional capacity of that drive. Click on apply. And it's going to create the volume will expand to maximum capacity of the storage pool. Now, you can actually change the RAID type because I think we went this on a previous demo as well. So I'm not gonna. I think a couple of webinars ago I showcased how to upgrade to how to migrate to RAID 5 because it's a 4-base system. I'm only using 2 drives. If you add the third drive, you can actually upgrade to RAID 5. But what I'm gonna show you right here is in the volume. So in the drives, in the hard drive menu, you can actually select the status. If you want to test the drive, you can click on status. You can actually test the drive. You can actually, because we always have a test plan, so it's going to keep testing the drive every once a day. So it's going to test and it'll give you the results as well, the next test plan as well. If you can run your test, if you want to have a test, if you want to test your drives yourself, you go to test plan, you can actually create a test plan yourself. So you can say my HDD test, and you can actually select which drives you want to test these, and you can select once a day, once a week, once a month. You can select your testing method, testing time as well. So that's testing. Now I'm going to show you another option called snapshots. Since we set up the NAS, the first thing I want to do is we're going to go through the App Center and we're going to download the snapshot utility application. So click on install and you're going to select multiple volumes. If you have single volume, just select that volume. And you can also check this box. It doesn't pop up this message. Click on install and it's going to start installing the application. All right, once it's installed, click on open. As I mentioned, it's going to show you which, all right, so it's going to show you the snapshot settings, right? Oh, is okay. First of all, so once you create the snapshot, once you create the volume, you want to have a folder where you want to store your data, right? So we're going to click on files and it's going to show you the files option and it's going to show you 3 options, right? The personal folder. So every user has its own personal folder. So this is like the home folder for Linux system. So if you use Linux, if you know about homes, this is the home folder. That's the personal folder. This is only you can access the data. No other user can access that data. Every user on your network or on your NAS will have their own personal folder. Shared folder is going to be shared folder. As I mentioned, it's going to be the you can actually create permissions for different people, so they can all collaborate onto that shared folder. You can actually share your data. You can actually share across to public network as well if you wanted to. And the user, again, user folder is like the home folder, but the collection of user folder. So collection of personal folders. So for and only admin people can access this. So if you're the admin, if you're the owner, and if you have multiple users in your network or on your NAS, you can see all their personal folders inside that. Only admin can do that because admin has access to the whole file system. So they can access the user folder as well. But other people who cannot access, the normal users cannot access the user folder. Click Start, and it's going to go through the process. If you want to create a shared folder, how to create a shared folder, I'll show you all of this, and then click on it. Now, if you want to, you don't need to enable, you can cancel this process. If you don't want personal folders and you just want to have a shared folder, you can actually don't have to enable this. You can ignore this. Or if you enable this, you can enable this. You can choose a location. If you have multiple volumes and multiple storage pools, select which location and hit confirm. Now you're going to have your own personal folder. Now, if you want to create a shared folder, you can click on the plus button and you can click on create shared folder, or you can go here and go to the shared folder management, and you can also create new folder as well. So I'm going to name it as also my backup folder, right? So all my backups for all my devices, for all my users can go sit here. So, and then here you can select the volumes. If you have multiple volumes, you can select that. You can also limit the capacity of that particular folder. Because you're using BTRFS, you can actually limit the capacity in gigabytes or terabytes as well. And then only that much space will be available for that particular storage. But you can actually control that with UGREEN NAS. If you don't want full capacity, just uncheck that box. You can also hide this in the network. So when you go to map folder, it's not going to show you that. You can actually manually have to enter the folder name to be able to access that. You can still access it. You just have to make sure you put in that folder name behind the slash, be able to access that folder. You can also enable recycle bin. So if you delete something, that data is never deleted permanently. It will actually go back in the recycle bin, and only admins can access it. Or you can uncheck this box and everybody can access it. They can restore their own recycle bin as well. I recommend doing admin only because sometimes people want to delete your data on purpose, right? They're trying to harm something, or they're trying to do malicious activity on your NAS. So if you check admin only, only you can access that data. So even if they delete, they will think that it's deleted permanently. But to be honest, it will be in the recycle bin. You have about 180 days to recover that data. So somebody deletes that, you can go back in time and go in the recycle bin and delete and recover that data. Click on create. And this is where if you have multiple users, you can actually select if you want to deny them. You can actually have read-only permissions, and and subfolder permissions as well have the same capacity, same permission type. Click confirm, and now you have that folder. Now let's go back to snapshots. So this is where the backup folder is. You can actually have snapshots for the user folder. So here are some actions, right? You can actually take a new snapshot. This will be a manual snapshot. You can actually take a manual snapshot as well. I will say this is my first snapshot. And you can lock this so it cannot be deleted. So you want to keep your data as is. Even if the snapshot is filled up, the NAS will not override the snapshot because you have locked the snapshot. So if you unlock this, it will be overwritten, right? So it will not be automatically deleted if there's no space, or you can lock the snapshot. So you can lock this period of time of your data at this given time. Hit confirm, and it will create that snapshot. You can also see the snapshot list as well. You can see this is the snapshot list. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to show you first the settings option. If you go to settings, you can actually have a snapshot plan. This is where you're going to schedule the snapshot. This goes back to Frank's question, right? If you name the folder, and what happens when you rename it? So let's say if you have a schedule to do it. So now let me go through this first of all. You can have a plan to run snapshots every day, every week, every month. If you have it every day, you won't be able to go back in time that many times because remember, it's going to be using that capacity of your storage pool. So it's going to do if you do every day, you're going to have less snapshots to go back to. Every week, you can actually have more time to go back to. Every month, you can actually have longer time to go back to. But you just have to remember, if you select every week, and you can actually select the days of week that it's going to run. Now, every week means it's going to run every week, and then it's going to run once. You can actually have every hour, every 2 hours, every 3 hours as well. You can actually run it every month, and you can select which day you want to run it at. And remember, if you select weekly or monthly, if the snapshot hasn't run until that given time, your data will not be updated in the snapshot list for that given time. Every day is going to run that snapshot every like midnight. So your midnight, your data will be backed up, basically not backed up, but you have a snapshot of that data, right? So that's simple, but remember, you have that ability as well. You can also do retention policy. So if you want to have the NAS, if the NAS has enough space, it's going to try to keep 100 or 1,000 snapshots, but you can also have retention days. I only care about my last 7 days of snapshot. You can actually do that as well, or you want to keep it a month's worth of snapshot. If the NAS has enough space, it's going to be able to keep that. Again, it does mention that here, specify the number of snapshot kept or retention time. When the limit is exceeded, the system will automatically delete old or expired snapshot to free up storage space. After deletion, it will take some time for space to reclaim. So if you select retention for 30 days, it's going to try to keep that. If it requires more space, it will start to delete older snapshot. So you just have to keep that in mind. Just click confirm, and now it's going to start taking snapshots. So every day is going to have a new snapshot. You can go here and you can see the list of snapshots. Now, because you have luck, this snapshot will never get deleted, but the other ones will get deleted if it requires more space. Now, there are two options here. You can browse the snapshot. You can recover each file at a time. Let me upload a file so we know what it looks like. All right, this is a file, right? Now it's gonna not, because the snapshot hasn't run, that data will not be shown right here. But let's run a snapshot. Where did I upload it first? It's in my personal folder. So let's go back. Let me show you what happens in your snapshot and personal in the user folder. And you actually also have to enable that on the user folder. It's per folder based settings. So you can actually have snapshots for only certain folders, not the whole system. Remember, it's per folder as well. So I'm going to take a snapshot right here. First personal folder, right? Click on confirm. Now, if you go in the snapshot list, you can go in the browse, you can see that particular file right here. Now, if I go back and delete that file, I'm going to close everything so you know it's not going to refresh. So if you go to snapshot, go to user folder, go to snapshot list, you can go here and see the file is still there. Now you have multiple options. You can copy that into another folder on the NAS. You can download it. So you can download it on your local computer, so you can actually have multiple copies, or you can open it and you can open the file as well. Now I'm going to copy back into that same folder. Now it's going to copy back. So that's one thing you can do, or you can go here and you can click on restore. Now, if you restore, the whole folder will be restored into another, like all the files will go back in time. It'll restore that into that given time. You can also, if it has cloning, if you have enough space, and not for personal folder, but if you have enough space, you can go here. You can actually clone. Let's go back to shared folder. Remember, if it has enough space, you can actually clone it. So you can actually have two versions of the same file. You can compare them, and you can actually have the two versions of that shared folder, right? You can also do that as well. So hopefully snapshot was pretty clear. The other settings we always recommend is under security. Now, under security, you can actually enable account security as well. You can actually enable two-factor authentication. So make sure that you have two-factor authentication. You can also enable firewall right here. You can enable firewall, and you can actually create a new rule, and you can actually create for all, and then you can also enable location. Now you can select United States, the location where you're located at, click OK, and only allow connections. So if you allow that, only US locations will be allowed connection, and everything else will be deleted. So this is geo blocking. And you can actually have multiple rules as well. It depends upon, let's say, if you want to have different, you want to deny different services on that connections. So like the web services, you want to allow them, you can deny that here. The other services will be disabled as well. And you can do all of that right here. You can disable specific IP addresses to access your NAS. You can do that here, or you can allow only certain IP addresses as well. But I like geo blocking, so I enable that particular functions. The other function is you want to access your NAS through Sambar or NFS or any other services, right? So by default, UGREEN NAS disables that service. If you want to enable that, you just click on Control Panel, go to File Services. For SMB, enable that service and apply. This will enable that SMB services similar to if you want to use FTP, NFS, parsing, WebDAV. Enable any of these services, you can enable that and you can apply them to enable that service. The other thing, if you want to discover your NAS on your network, you can enable WSDD2 service for Windows, Bonjour services for Mac, or UPnP services for your TVs and other devices that support UPnP services like VLC, VLC servers, or anything service. So anything that supports UPnP, you can enable that. By default, everything is disabled. So you want to ensure that you enable that as well. Device connections. This will be your remote access, right? So your LAN name is what we enable here, or you want to enable your UG link. This will be your UG link service. So you can copy this, and then when you enable, so you can, I'm going to switch accounts, log into another account. Okay. Paste this. That's all you have to do for remote access. This is easy remote access. This is free service that we have enabled for you. And it uses our relay service, not to copy data, but just to create that connection. And then and it will just create that connection for you. You can start accessing your data remotely as well. And then go back to device connections, go back to remote access. Or if you don't want to use the NAS application, or if you're using your friend's computer, you just want quick access to that your NAS, click on this web link, open the browser, paste this, and it's going to try connecting that data. Oh, so it's going to try connecting your NAS through that link. Just put in the username and password. That's it. That's how simple it is to set up remote access to your NAS. Now, there is more too as well, which is opening the port, accessing your NAS, which we don't recommend this, but if you want to do that, you can enable DDNS, and you can add the DDNS service as well. And you can select which provider you have, and then you can select that as well, and you can set up that, all of that here, but we don't recommend opening ports. But if you go to portal settings, this is where you find your port information, right? So this is your web service, which is 9999, HTTPS is 9443. So it's not the default 80 or 443, it's actually non-default port. So remember that when you're remotely accessing your NAS through web services. I do recommend redirecting everything to HTTPS, okay, since everything is HTTP. So it will give you invalid certificate if you don't have SSL certificate. Just click OK, and then click Apply, and that's it. right? So these are some simple setups that you can do on your NAS. So I'm going to open this webinar to our Q&A section. So if you have any question that you want to get answered, please feel free to answer this question. And that's it for today's live demo. I'm going to keep the web interface open. So if you want to have any questions about that, you can do that here as well. Oh, what if you forgot your password? So if you forgot the password on the NAS, usually there is on the back of the NAS, there is a reset button. Let me see if I can show you a picture of that. Not sure I have a picture of the back of the NAS, but if you forget your password, there's a small reset hole. You have to use like a really small pinhole, and then you can press and hold the reset button for about 5 seconds. The NAS will beep, and then you go to find.ugreennas.com or whatever application you use. Just enter admin as a username with no password, and it will ask you to create a password, and then it will create a new password for you. All right, Frank has another question. So thank you for the great overview. Thank you for the feedback. You want to do a feature in-depth overview of the NAS application. So Frank, I do want to do in-depth reviews for our applications, but I want to do, this is more like a first setup webinar. I'll do one for each applications as we go through. Remember, this is going to be a monthly webinar series, so I'll keep doing these monthly webinars, and then future I'll start doing in-depth for each applications that we support. And there are some good news coming up really soon in about sometime mid Q2. I don't want to spoil a few things, but you're going to see more in-depth webinars for each applications and some new applications there we have planned for you down the line. So keep that in mind. Any other questions? All right, so it looks like no further questions. So thank you all for joining our webinar. Hope you guys like this webinar. Please keep a lookout for the next webinar that we have in the monthly series. And thank you all for joining our webinar. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much.